Hello.
Shelley.
Good morning. I'm Emily Steele. I am a media marketing reporter at the Financial Times, and I'm very excited for this discussion about women in technology and how advertisers and brands and companies can help design their products in a way that best resonate with this target demographic. I'd love if our panelists could introduce yourselves and maybe give an example of your best and worst of a technology product that was designed with women in mind.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alice Hahn. I'm a designer. I'm a UX designer and product lead at Zappos.com Labs in San Francisco. And best and worst design product for women. I would have to say one of my favorite products. It's an app. It's an app called IWNY, and it's functional and it's fun, and it's basically a way to make lists. But it kind of gamifies it too. And a lot of people think that women aren't gamers, but women actually make up a large percentage of gamers, especially those in casual gaming. So it's really fun. Check it out, IWNY. For apps not designed well for men, I probably can't think of any off the top of my head, only because I probably wouldn't use it. But I'd have to think more about that.
Great, thanks.
Good morning, my name is Emily Crawford, and I work for Cisco Systems here in New York. I run part of the enterprise business in the tri-state area. Cisco is a technology company. Many of you are familiar with our brand, and we provide hardware and software and services that help customers communicate with their customers. The product that I wanted to highlight today is not necessarily just for women, but I think the Nike Fuel Band has really changed the way that both men and women can keep track of their health statistics. And as we know, women are responsible for more than 80% of healthcare decisions in households today. So I think being able to really have a repository for that information and track it, we can correlate more information and be healthier as families.
Thank you.
I'm Shelley Zalis, and I loved the previous speaker because he talked about digital disruption. My title is Chief Disruption Officer, and I'm an oxymoron because I'm a technology-enabled researcher. So I've been building technology for research sake for the last 14, 15 years. So I'm very excited to be here. I think from technology's sake, when you go to CES and you walk around the floor, you see a lot of great gadgets. And I think that gadgets for gadget's sake, from a female perspective, are not necessary. I think things that really are designed to just get attention versus give attention are the biggest differentiators in my mind between what women want and how they feel about products. So for technology's sake doesn't really do it. It's for utility, usefulness, value added, making your life easy and simple, and simplicity is what women want. So flops in my mind are things designed just so that you could put the female spin on it. There was an iPad called Femme, which was an iPad, but it just was pink. And it had apps like yoga and recipes. So stereotyping things for the sake of it, I don't think work. The Big Pen for Women, another good example. Successful ones, I think when you pair the male and female together in terms of development, you get the functionality, but then you also get the friendly aspect. Actually, the Mac was developed by Steve Jobs, of course, but behind that success was a very amazing woman that friendlyized it and made it very user-friendly with all the icons and the welcome icons. So I think that's a very successful pairing.
Great, thanks. And Sarah?
Hi, I'm Sarah Kramer. I work for MediaVest, and we manage a number of large businesses such as P&G, Walmart, Coke, Mondelez, and I help our clients determine who are the right people that they should be reaching in order to communicate the core benefit of their product and grow their business across all touch points, across all stages of the purchase cycle. And I lead all of our client businesses here in North America for MediaVest. I agree a lot with many of the things that you just said as well, because I think it comes down to the experience for technology to be useful and valuable for anybody, man or women. But I love what is happening in the audio space. Spotify is one of my favorite brands, and I don't necessarily think of it as a women-based product. It is a family technology phenomenon in our household, and I think more and more the way products are developed for the family, enabled primarily by women and the utility it brings to a family, is a huge trend. I think things like map utility, and when Apple came out with the map, the new and updated map technology, that was a huge disappointment for me because I use it on a regular basis, and so I'm a big fan when it's clear that there was a lot of intuitive research that went into things, and so that's probably an example of something that didn't perform as well. So
great, thank you. So I guess my first question is, I would love to get your sense on what are the major differences between how men and women engage with technology and the way that they use mobile devices and the websites and their behaviors that they exhibit as they kind of go about their lives. Emily, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So obviously men and women behave very similarly with technology, but we also see differences. And so part of what Cisco does is we enable a lot of mobile choice for people to use whatever devices they choose. One interesting fact is that women tend to go online to do more research in advance of purchasing decisions. And women are also very close to most purchasing decisions in households. I believe when they break it down, there are 5 steps of decisions, and women own 4 out of 5 steps. And then men and women together own the last step, which is actually purchasing. So much of the research that's done online, even from mobile devices, is done by women. And what that means for marketers is that you have to be very targeted. Women enjoy communication, and women like to see explanations and information and have it be presented in a very digestible format. So that's something that's really important for marketers to keep in mind as they try to target women in particular.
Shelley, do you have?
I think women are responsible for over $5 trillion worth of business and products that are developed and sold in America, more than in Japan actually, and responsible for 80% of the decision making that is done. And I think the difference between men and women, if we think about how we are built, biologically we are different, as well as sociologically. Biologically, our right and left brain process information very differently. We contextualize things in very different ways. And so we have to take into account that we're not very good at just like the bullet list. We need to have that story and that emotion quotient of usefulness and utility built around how we think. And sociologically, we are talkers. I mean, we're sharers. And we need things that we can hold on to that are sticky. And if they are, then we share them and we talk about them, which is how that whole viral thing happens. Men are very lucky because when they build great products, we're going to share it with all of our friends and that whole network because we think it's very important to respond that way. So I think we have to understand the differences. Not that products need to be developed just for women, but how to develop products that will be universal yet created individually so that men and women both embrace it and integrate it into their core values and into their lifestyles.
So what does that mean, Alice and Sarah, for the actual products that get developed or the ad and marketing campaigns that you build around them when you're thinking about the way that women use technology and engage with technology may be different than how men do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've seen a lot of research saying that women tend to really like things that are very intuitive. And this is not to say that we want things dumbed down by any means, but we just have less tolerance for that. And part of the reason is women are multitaskers. We're really awesome at it. We've got a lot going on, and so if we don't have as much tolerance for a design that's going to be challenging to use or going to take time to read the how-to manual. Men typically are more open to kind of conquering it, trying to conquer it, whether it's like going through that manual, figuring it out. For women, it's like we've got a lot to do, and if we can't figure it out easily because the design is not intuitive, we might abandon ship. And this kind of goes along with products such as like a complex VCR versus even like a website where you go to the first time user experience and the homepage or whatever the entry point is, and it's not obvious what you're supposed to do, you're going to lose that customer. So it's really important to understand that women want to have really clear clear action when an understanding of when they receive a product, whether it's an online product or a physical product.
Yes, I agree. I think, we encourage our clients to meet more and more with core technology partners, because many times our clients know more about women than the technology developers, and many times that partnership comes together too far late in the product development cycle. And when we took all of our clients to CES this last January, it was just a huge light bulb for all of us that the consumer needs to be brought into that technology process in a much bigger way. And I think, a
Do you
lot
have an
of
example of that? Was there something a light bulb that went off that you saw some product and you were like, where are the women? Where is the
I think in a lot of the appliance designs, it feels as if it is built for the actual experience in and of itself, of whether that's washing clothes, whether that is in compartmentalizing your food, whether that's in how you run your home remotely or inside the home, versus following a day in the life of a family and understanding what influences that research or list that leads to the things that take place in the home, what happens in the home, and then what happens when they have a good or a bad experience in the home. And technology plays a role across that entire day in the life. And I think that kind of an insight it could be very valuable for technology developers. And sometimes I think that insight isn't brought enough into the process.
I think also, I just want to jump in because I have to elaborate on what you just said. I think there's 3 key trends for women that we look for. One is efficiency. We multitask on steroids, so we need efficiency, simplicity, and personalization, because we really need it, what we want, when we want it, how we want it, where we want it. I mean, that whole phrase of IWWI, WWWI, whatever it is, but that's very true. Teenagers use it, but so do women very often. And I think when you think about a lot of the apps out there, they are ingredients, but they're not solutions. I mean, who wants to download 20 apps? One app for coupons, one for recipes, one for shopping lists, one for, work stuff. We want to have it all in one place in a very simple, easy to use fashion. Or when you think about, all of this second screen content or content on demand, that's very nice, but we want to pull it when we want it. So that whole concept of triggered content in a personalized way. We don't want an app with all this couponing out there for things that we don't even use. So know me and help me make my life easy. So I think those are really important features as well.
One thing I'm wondering about is how much these stereotypes of women in technology are changing too. I just remember growing up, I felt like it was in my house, it was my dad who always understood the VCR and the technology and the computer and kind of all of the gears and the gadgets in the house, and my mom didn't really care about that. But then now she's the one who's on her iPad and doing all of these kind of really more tech savvy things than what he does. How are women in technology changing with different generations, and how much do these stereotypes still actually apply or even matter?
Yeah, I think that stereotypes still exist, but one of the mistakes that marketers can make is to play into those stereotypes. I think more and more, particularly with generations who are embracing technology at ever younger ages, it seems almost at 6 months old these days, I find that if marketers are still clinging to the old stereotypes, it goes without saying that I think we're leaving a lot on the table when it comes to an addressable market. But also, interestingly, women who follow brands are much more loyal than men who follow brands. And that's something that has emerged in social media. So capturing that woman and being able to really engage her in your brand is even more important nowadays than it has been in the past. And I think you alluded to it earlier, word of mouth, being able to really espouse a brand is something that we do. And it's something that I think we do with a passion, which might differentiate women from men when it comes to brand loyalty. When we find something, we tend to just keep going back. And I think that's something that we need to keep in mind from just the social media perspective as well.
Yeah. I think there's a lot to be said about more emphasis on user experience and more recently than before. So there's a lot of research that's been going on for various products and websites. And that's been great just because I think that, not only is it necessarily just for women, but, if there's a product or a site specific to, a political group or an international market, I think the companies are being a lot wiser about making sure that they're doing the due diligence in doing the research rather than making these assumptions and potentially appearing quite ignorant and offensive to people. So, with more sites having a more targeted design, it's really allowing people to kind of see past the stereotypes and seeing what women really want.
I think women also love the whole concept of visualization and stories, and not just the features on a checklist. Got that, check, 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 check. It's really how women internalize it and see that value in their lives. So for marketers to cut to the chase and give us the messages that resonate and that we can internalize in a way that is memorable and show us how it brings that value to our lives. When you buy a car, it's not just about, the shiny objects on the car, but it's how that car can really help you with your lifestyle and your value in your life. I mean, think about what you would buy a car for from a female perspective than from a male perspective. And when you go to technology labs, the MIT lab, there are some labs run by women, and it is fascinating to see what they're working on versus what the men are working on. The women are working on how you can bring books to life for children and make them more friendly and engaging versus some of the gadgets and the goggles and that kind of stuff. So it's just interesting to see the different types of technology that women are building and creating versus some of the men.
Yeah, I would also say if you assume a traditional purchase funnel anymore, you're also having historically predisposed notions of what a woman must go through to purchase. And I think any marketer that wants a competitive advantage is going to enable women to buy now at any point in time in that purchase cycle. And that is a classic mistake that I think if marketers continue to make that, again, they're going to lose their competitive advantage.
What's an example of that, of what maybe something that would be a really great kind of journey that would capture a woman at the right time for something that...
Right, I think that, when you think about an experience inside of, Fab is one of these apps that I get that kind of has latest trending products, or House, that has recommendations for how you might think about different areas of your house, or different redesigns, et cetera. The ability, when you see what you want to purchase, then not just get information, not just continue that research cycle, to actually purchase whatever it might be. Also, when I use Foursquare and I am purchasing whatever it might be, the recommendations that are made to me by those stores influence an incremental purchase that I wouldn't have considered. Those are all of the points in time that I think technology is enabling greater purchase power, but also greater connectivity to what's relevant at different points in time than ever before. So,
Alice, you work in a really interesting group at Zappos that's thinking about a lot of these issues and these ideas. What's an example of how you have started to try to incorporate that thought process in the actual products or services that we see?
Specifically to women. Well, our target audience at Zappos, we try to cater to everyone, of course. So, we want to have the fundamentals of a really solid website and a good user experience. But most of our customers are the soccer moms, so mostly female. So at our labs, what we're looking for is alternative shopping experiences, and we work on things that might be partnering unofficially with like Twitter or Facebook and Pinterest. And a recent project we did was, taking a look at what people were pinning on Pinterest and recommending products, Zappos products based on that.
Oh, that's interesting.
What's really
How
fun
did it
about
work?
that? We've ran into some technical difficulties, so right now it's a little bit on hold, but we have some ideas coming up. But the idea was to allow people to, to see products that they might like on Zappos based on the pin. So if they liked something that was like Versace, people don't know that we sell couture. So that's kind of like a way of spreading our brand. People often think about shoes when they think about Zappos, but we have a lot more than that. So a lot of things on Pinterest, for example, are wedding related. That's one of their largest markets. A lot of pins, and we have a wedding shop too. So we're trying to kind of see the need, the aspirational need that people have on Pinterest, and kind of pulling that in and recommending products from Zappos. So it's kind of a fun way of understanding, because the typical Pinterest user is a very similar demographic as Zappos core user. So having these strong visuals and having this retail connection, it seemed like a very natural marriage, and so that was a product that we really wanted to build together.
Cool, that's really interesting. Do you all, given that so many people who work in the engineering field and who are actually kind of behind the scenes developing the products are men, do you see any huge white spaces or areas that you think would be a really kind of a green or fertile area for products to be developed with women in mind? Are there any?
I think for me, one of the first things we have to do is not call it engineering. Women don't want to be engineers. They love being technologists, or they love being something other than engineers. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that I've heard about is, with just the word engineering isn't, you think about building a building, or, you don't think about the fact that you can be creating a new disruptive, sticky way of living. So technology is edgy and sticky. Engineering, not so much. And I think a lot of women are entering the field, as we heard before, as entrepreneurs, because they see this opportunity. There's all these new challenges, and men hear them as challenges. Women see them as opportunities. And when we talked about creating this whole new white space, a lot of it comes from where we've been to then thinking about it a little differently and deploying it in a whole new way. And when we talked a lot about path to purchase, it's a very interesting thing when we think about the decision journey, and some things just don't change. I just kept thinking about the infomercial days when you'd watch an infomercial, a 30-minute program of 3 pods of 8 minutes, and that call to action would come up. But as a woman, you're so impatient because you wanted to call at 2 minutes, but you had to wait for 8 minutes, and we don't have patience. We're like, I want to call right now. And it's the same thing. We don't want to wait for the marketer to give us the message when they think we want it. We want to pull the information when we need it. So it was just...
I agree. And to build on that, regardless of what I think you call the position, or regardless of whether women get into the field, they're doing it now. And I think the growth that we're seeing in a lot of service and product is happening because women want to fulfill the need. Look at Urban Sitters. That was created because women had a need, and they figured out a way to connect women with babysitting networks. And I mean, I know 10 other, off the top of my head, just women getting together, or one woman that's determined to make something happen. So I do think that there needs to be more infusion of women in technology-driven positions. However, I love the women, the movement that we have of women just leaning in and making it happen too. So I think that could create a whole new opportunity for women that didn't exist before.
And I'd just like to say, working for a technology company, Cisco's 25 years old, and obviously we grew up in Silicon Valley, and we are a very engineering-focused company. So whether we call it engineering or not, we're still building products that both men and women use. And what we are trying to do is double down, and even just recently our CEO, John Chambers, gave us an internal challenge to bring more women into engineering. And the way that we're building our culture around engineering is more around women love to be problem solvers, right? We love to be designers. And so it sort of backs up your point that engineering the way it used to be is not necessarily the way that women view engineering today. And I think we need to create corporate cultures that embrace more of the problem solving and more of kind of the creative designing, as opposed to just a very static engineering title.
And given that there are so few women right now that actually are kind of behind the scenes building the products, developing the services, what sort of areas do you think exist that would be a great opportunity or a great technology to develop or to build, or a product or service that people are really craving or asking for?
If I knew that, I might not be sitting here right now. It's a great question. I still think, coming back to just the whole life, I think there's an opportunity to try to integrate more of what we would see as more siloed applications in our lives, and try to create integrated story around how we transition from a work day to potential childcare to being a spouse or elder care or hobbies. I think there's an opportunity there to really try to add a little bit more coordination and help us to coordinate these very busy lives. That would be.
Yeah, I agree. I think healthcare is also a huge white space. I think seeing the phenomenon of Fuel Band and Fitbit, all of these things are starting to give people a greater consciousness of their health and planning for it, but it's still a very clunky process to coordinate and organize and aggregate the data. And so I think you see a lot that's changing, that technology I think has a role to help streamline and facilitate, that could have a bigger impact than maybe we realize today.
One issue that I've written a lot about is privacy issues, and kind of with the rise of digital and the internet and kind of all of these different tracking technologies, how what's happening with our privacy in today's world. And I'm just wondering how you all think that women and men view privacy differently. Are there real differences in kind of how they think about engaging with some of these more personalization features, or how they feel about being tracked or sharing their location or their status kind of to the whole world, or are those fading?
I think the whole privacy thing needs to be turned on its head, and thinking about it less from the marketer perspective of what they want and more from the consumer value perspective, because consumers are willing to share absolutely everything about their lives, but they want something in return, which is customization and personalization. And what's happening is we ask customers and people to share, but yet we're not giving back in a way that brings relevance and value added to the consumer's lives. So men and women alike really are upset about the fact that everyone's trying to take all this information, and yet we're not translating that back in a value-added kind of way. And so I think men may be less concerned about it, women might be a little more concerned, but we're both as concerned. And it's more selfish for marketers to take and not give in return. So I think that's a big issue with privacy in general. I mean,
Sarah, what do you think about this? You lead one of the biggest media buying groups.
Yeah, I agree. I don't necessarily think that it's more or less of a concern between men and women. I think it's all about the value. And people are very willing to create a partnership with somebody that they believe they can trust, that there is a front-end experience that is adding value not just once, but on an ongoing basis. I think, American Express is a great example inside of an industry that is, very private, something that's very, not something that a consumer is willing to be vulnerable about. And the way American Express has created more loyalty with their consumers by integrating convenience and the benefit of that partnership into other technology, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Foursquare, the shopping experience. Every time I use American Express, I get an additional value because I've somehow used technology that American Express is attached to. And I think that's just a great example of, they have all of my credit card information, et cetera. And I think everybody's seen a lot of the case studies on that particular company and the success they've had at building loyalty like no other. And so obviously, when you do it in the right way, you can overcome those barriers.
And in addition to that, in providing personal information when they're registering for websites, so at Zappos Labs, we create a number of microsites, and we need people to log in or register. And some people are very hesitant to do that. We've done a lot of user testing. As a labs team, we do a lot of testing. And men and women alike are very hesitant to, for example, Facebook Connect. Because they don't know what's going to go onto their Facebook wall. They don't know what information is going to be shared. So there's a lot of hesitance. And we've actually seen a lot of people say that they wouldn't even use the product if they're prompted with that login up front. So a lot of things that we've been trying, which has been more successful, is delaying that requirement to log in or register and allow them to experience it more. So they kind of have that emotional connection, and they've invested some time into the product, and they see the value add. And once they start to see the value add and how, maybe spend some time and getting that connection, then they're more inclined to, actually register or log in. So giving them as much as we can before asking them for their information.
That's fascinating. I'd love to open it up to Q&A with questions for the audience. If anybody has questions they would like to ask. Are there any? There's one right here.
Hi, thank you very much for speaking today. I believe it was early last week there was some headlines about the psychological effects of Pinterest and women's depression and feeling kind of insecure or not feeling that they're able to acquire so much that they see on Pinterest. And I was just wondering if you can speak to your thoughts on this aspirational effect and how that can maybe inhibit people from purchasing or making them like this feel guilty about themselves.
That's a great question, and this kind of speaks to the product I was referencing earlier. Is you're right, Pinterest is a lot about aspirational things and these beautiful, interior designs that we would all love to have in our homes, or just amazing clothes. And that's kind of what we were thinking at Zappos was, they might not be able to afford these really nice things, but if we can push products that are more affordable, they might not be exactly the same, they might not be the same brands, but we can have another beaded dress that might not be Versace, but could be another brand, like a private label, that still has that same style. Then that could satisfy that need. So I think that's true. I think there's like that aspirational side of Pinterest, and I think there's a lot of ways that retail sites can actually play into that to push products that might be similar but more achievable.
I do think, though, that there is a fine line, and when looking at marketing, particularly marketing that is focused on sort of the emotional connections, you have to get the message right, because you can very easily create backlash in the precise community you're targeting. An example of that last year, I think everyone remembers the Motrin Moms commercial that was intended to really talk about using the product for women who made a very courageous choice to wear their babies and keep their babies close in slings on their bodies. It's a very, it's a very big sacrifice that mothers make. Unfortunately, Motrin's messaging made it come across more as like a fad, and it really kind of belittled many mothers thought it was more of a belittling message, and so the backlash that happened as a result of that was incredible. I think within one day, it was one of the most tweeted stories. There were, calls to protest Motrin. I mean, it just turned into a disaster. And so I think a very good intention from the marketing perspective came out wrong just based on a few words in the copy, and you have to be very careful with that, especially when targeting some of these emotional decisions that mothers make.
I actually think your question brought this whole conversation full circle, because one of the other personality traits of women is an incomplete syndrome. We are very task-oriented, and we need to complete the project, or it's going to make us anxious and lead to depression. And so it's back to path to purchase. If you see something beautiful on Pinterest and all those magazines that show the celebrity wearing the fancy outfit, but this is how you can afford to buy it, that's what's missing. And when we talked about ingredient but not solution, here's your opportunity as a woman. If you could take a picture of that Pinterest, and some marketer would present alternatives to getting that, there's your opportunity. Wrap it up, start your new business, because that's where we need to go.
Great question. There's one right back here.
Hi, I was a little bothered by the point that more women don't get into engineering, because engineering basically is an icky word, and that we should be technologists. I think that that's like missing the forest for the trees. I mean, the main reason why more women don't go into engineering is because they're discouraged, and I really felt like the discussion should be about how do we encourage that, as opposed to let's change the terminology, because I've never heard a single woman ever say, oh, I don't like the word engineering. I've heard a lot of women say that they've been discouraged, or that they've been discriminated against, or that they've just can't deal with the sexist talk that goes on in their workplace.
Yeah. Alice, I would love to hear your response to this.
Sure. I definitely.
You have good experience.
I definitely feel like, there's definitely challenges with that. I actually studied engineering and design And I was an engineer for the first year. And it definitely had its challenges because it's true there just were not that many women. So there were challenges in being as a very, very young, fresh graduate woman at Hewlett-Packard is where it was. So a lot of older men. So I can see where you're coming from and the frustration with that. And one of the big things that I got involved with Society of Women Engineers, and that was about going to the schools and teaching the young women about the different facets of engineering and technology that they can get into, and showing them fun science experiments and getting them excited. Because I think there is something to be said about certain careers that might have a sterile feeling to it when there actually is a lot of excitement with discovery. And so by kind of pulling these forward and showing these young women what the opportunities are, it actually can kind of encourage them to be more interested and hopefully go into the field and even out that ratio of men to women in engineering.
Yeah. Let me take that too, because I'm the one that said it, so I take full responsibility for that. I did exactly what I said I shouldn't do, which was bullet point the message, because it really is a conversation that we should have around it. It is not a bulleted conversation. I think the real truth is, and I'll contextualize what I said now for you, is we need to elaborate what engineering is, because it was very pigeonholed in the past, and there are so many more opportunities that engineers bring to the party that we didn't have before, from the visualization and the contextualization and the relevance and the importance. And a lot of girls, and I got that message, by the way, from the women in the MIT Media Lab, which is why I said that. They are trying to create a whole new way of showing women how exciting engineering is. And so putting more words around it so that we can elaborate the concept of the value proposition that engineers bring to the table today than what we used to know back then. And that's because the world has changed and the opportunities have grown. And if you asked me before, and I'm a technologist and I'm a computer geek, I never would have wanted to be a computer geek. I went to Columbia University, and all my friends that were on computers were on mainframes. This big box that was so yucky. And look at computer technology today. It's exciting and it's sexy. And so how do we make engineering sexy? By showing the value proposition around it. So I forgive me for using that word, but it was more, how do we contextualize it in the new ways that show the value that we bring to the table today?
Are there any other questions?
Hi. This is along the same lines. I'm wondering if your tech departments have a strong emphasis on usability and user experience, which is usually not the case with tech departments, and what you're doing to hire women into that process who have a tendency maybe to not be on GitHub as much because that's just like a competitive, my code is better than your code kind of environment and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can address that. So at Cisco, we have a huge focus on building the diverse pipeline of engineers. And this is something that we take very seriously. It's not just a problem at Cisco, it's across the industry. So colleagues at many of the other tech companies are working toward that. We have many programs at college universities, for instance, on campus to do much more recruiting. But what we find is that interest actually begins much before kids even hit college. So it's really much more about trying to get into K through 12, trying to influence much earlier in life. Children grow up with technology today. This should be second nature, but unfortunately women are dropping out, as we all know, at much higher rates than men. The other point I wanted to make is we actually as a company have undergone a tremendous shift, just I would say even in the past 6 to 7 years. So for many years, we developed products essentially in silos. We have such a breadth of products. And what we didn't do very well, I'll fall on the sword here in front of everyone, is we really didn't integrate a user interface across those products. And B, we didn't design any of those products with a specific customer segment in mind. So we were coming to market with really great technology that solved really great problems for one person in an organization. So we actually had to change our organization completely. We've completely restructured our own development organization. We now stripe across these groups. They, just fundamental changes in terms of organizational structure have been made. But I think to your point, we've also really focused on the user experience. And that's something that all of us can attest is that's the key to success. if no one can use your product, it could be the biggest, tech bust that you've seen. And so I think there's an intense focus right now from many tech companies in terms of our engineering work and how we're striping across those technologies and really focusing on the user experience.
From a researcher, I have to add that it is understanding the consumer value proposition up front and integrated multidisciplinary teams. We hear that the CMO and the CIO are the new best friends. They're the BFFs today. And I think that's very important to understand. Nothing starts in a silo. And you can't build technology without understanding what you're building it for. And as a technology-enabled researcher, I have taught so many code writers, spec writers, and I've written myself just to understand the process, market research. So you could see me teaching them how you have to understand demographics today, psychographics, sociographics, behavior graphics, and if you talk to any of my technologists, they can talk about market research and the applications and the implications around it.
Sarah, I'd love to get your perspective on this as well. You said kind of after going to CES this year, that really set off a light bulb in your brain that you on the marketing side need to get closer to the technology side. How do you do that? And are there any examples of that kind of relationship going forward?
Yeah, I think it's about a marketer leaning forward with those kinds of relationships and influence. Also, the advertising experience is much more connected across platforms and devices than ever before. So a conversation with Samsung is not just about appliances or mobile, it is about the connected home. And I could say the same with a lot of other technology companies. So thinking about it from a consumer perspective is how you enter the conversation in order for it to be a rich one and mutually beneficial one for both the technology company and the marketer. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. If there's any more. There's one right in the middle. Okay, I'll repeat it. Yeah.
Hi. So I work at HBO, and I have a question for you on an entertainment basis. You mentioned that Spotify is sort of a family phenomenon for you. My role is taking a lot of our older programming that never had rights to air on the internet and upgrading it. What are your thoughts on sort of appointment viewing falling by the wayside and now everything being on demand and really customizable? Do you think that live television will ultimately go away and people will watch on their own clock? Or particularly women too or within families?
We're calling it moving from prime time to always on screen time. And I think that content will always be queen, I should say king, but will always be queen. And I think that television will always be here. People still want to be, laid back, sit back, lean back mode, entertained by content. But I think it will become a new layer. I think that television and radio are fabulous layering medias where you could hopefully then trigger content when you want it, where you want it. So I think the act of still viewing your screen is going to be very important. But that's not to say that we won't be multi-screening with simultaneous content at the same time. So how do we think about that, connected simultaneous content around, sequential viewing?
Yeah, and I would agree. I think HBO To Go is one of my favorite apps. Love that, and I love it for all the reasons you mentioned. I can watch it anytime, on kind of my terms. But other technology I love is Apple TV, Roku, and that's what my kids know how to navigate. They have no idea how to navigate our traditional menu that's part of our Time Warner subscription. So if what you're asking is, do I think that content will start to become separated from what are some of the traditional approaches to viewing? Yes. Do I think that means that what we know of as live television is going to go away? No, because live television in sports, live television in award shows, live television for many, kids events, I think will still bring an audience when the moment is happening. How they receive that and interact with that is what is revolutionizing the experience. Television sales have never been, greater because of the experience, but that experience isn't coming from just one screen. So that's kind of my point of view. I think it's totally changing, but I love the ability to watch when I want, what I want, and my kids do more than I do, so it's what's to come.
And I think you'll see the greatest shift in media measurement to content measurement. Creating content that influences across any channel that people choose is where we're going to need to move.
Great. Well, I'd like to thank our panelists for a great discussion and for your great participation as well. So thank you very, very much.